Howdy, Immortalium here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Rin, Daughters of Mnemosyne. Now there's quite a bit to discuss when it comes to Rin, Daughters of Mnemosyne. For one, I do believe that this show was produced for an anniversary, celebrating, I believe the channel is called AT-X, it's an anime channel in Japan, and they decided to produce this show in order to celebrate a particular anniversary. The series is only 6 episodes long, and if I'm correct, it was aired monthly rather than weekly, and interestingly, each episode is 40 minutes long, which is double the length of a standard anime episode. So already, Rin Daughters of Mnemosyne seems quite different to many other anime series. But of course, the question is, as always, is Rin Daughters of Mnemosyne any good? And that's what I'm going to be discussing today. So let's get started. So what is the story of Rin Daughters of Mnemosyne? Rin Daughters of Mnemosyne opens up in 1990, and we are introduced to Rin Asogi, who runs her own detective agency with her partner Mimi. On this particular day, Rin's task is to find a missing cat. But while she's out looking for this missing cat, she comes across a man called Koki Maeno. And Koki Maeno has the feeling that something isn't quite right. He's not an amnesiac, but something doesn't feel right about his memories. And so it ends up becoming Rin's task in order to figure out what's wrong with Koki, what's wrong with his memories, etc, etc. And an important piece of information I think to mention, which is revealed pretty quickly, is the fact that Rin and Mimi are immortals. They are incapable of dying. And this leads to a very interesting situation and structure for this show. So for the most part, this show is structured episodically. For the first 4 episodes in particular, each story is pretty much standalone, with certain elements contributing to an overall narrative. It isn't until episode 5 that a lot of these overarching narratives begin to come together, and it isn't until episode 6 that this overarching story comes to the forefront. And I have to say that I really do like Rin Daughters of Mnemosyne. I find the characters themselves to be incredibly likable, in particular Rin herself. She is such a charming main character, and something that you will learn very quickly going over this show is the fact that she is absolutely determined to carry out her job regardless of the consequences. That is something that I find really appealing in the main character. Mimi herself is also a very charming character and contributes greatly to Rin's investigations. Now, interestingly, with regards to the other characters, something that's very important to note here is that the show is actually structured in such a way in that most episodes that actually take place within different years. You essentially get to see a generational progression, both in terms of other side characters and of course the world itself. And this aspect in particular I really do admire. The fact that the main 2 characters themselves are unchanging, but they're observing the world and other characters change around them. And I just absolutely love that aspect of the storytelling. I think it's really well done. So far this show sounds fantastic, right? And it seems like I should be recommending everyone to watch this show. And that is something that I cannot do. And there is a particular reason for it, and that is the levels of sexuality and violence. This show is very graphic, and for those of you who are squeamish, you will probably actually find this show very tough to watch. So if you have issues with the levels of violence, with the torture, with the sexuality, etc, then you will probably want to steer clear from this show. But for those of you who are interested in an incredibly interesting story about immortals who are investigating all of these situations, who are observing the world change around them, then I very strongly recommend this show. Literally, my only 2 flaws with the show is, first off, I do think there are a couple of sexual scenes that are a little too gratuitous. In particular, I can think of a scene from episode 5 that I always roll my eyes at, thinking, why is this here? It seems to just be here in order to be sexual, and I don't particularly care for that particular scene. And then the last episode, if I'm going to be completely honest, is my least favorite episode of the series, even though I still quite like it. Characters who were relatively small parts in previous episodes suddenly come to the forefront, and I do feel that the overall execution for the last episode feels rushed. I do wish that maybe they had split it up into 2 or 3 more episodes just to kind of develop out the final main story. But regardless, I do absolutely love the storytelling in this show, and I definitely strongly recommend people people who can handle the violence and sexuality of the show to check it out. Now, with regards to the animation, now the animation here is done by a studio called, I believe they're called Xebec. They're spelled Xebec. And to be completely honest, I'm not a fan of Xebec. And generally, I would accuse them of lacking a lot of detail, of having characters go off model consistently, etc., etc. But I'm absolutely glad to say that the animation for this show is really, really top notch. I think the character designs are really pleasant to look at. There's a lot of detail. In a lot of the action sequences, there is some very nice fluidity. In general, there isn't much I can criticize them for when it comes to the animation of this show. I think this is easily the best work that I've seen from Xebec. And admittedly, that isn't a lot because I generally avoid their works. But I think they really knocked it out of the park when it came to the animation for this series. Now, with regards to the music for this series, again, I think it is really, really top notch. I think the action sequence music is absolutely fantastic, but also the music knows when certain moments are to be quiet, when certain moments are to be more contemplative. And of course, I am quite addicted to the music from the opening and ending as well. So I think when it comes to the music for this series, this is actually a soundtrack that I listen to quite a lot. And that's always a good sign when it comes to a piece of media. With regards to the voice acting, now the voice acting here is probably going to get me into a bit of trouble. So first off, the box set that I have here is available in 2 languages, Japanese and English. And I'm going to be completely honest here and say that I believe that the English voice acting saves the show. This DVD defaults to Japanese when you start it up, and when I was listening to the Japanese, it really, really grated me for some reason. I believe that I think a lot of the voice performances were terrible, emotionless, and lacking any form of character. And when I swapped over to the English dub, I was very pleased to hear some incredibly great performances from Colin Clinkenbeard, from Jamie Marchi, etc., etc. This problem isn't specific to me. I actually have a friend who generally watches anime in Japanese. And when he came over and we started watching the show in Japanese, he said that he didn't care for the voice performances either. And when we swapped over to English, he really liked it then. So this is something that I'm going to be super interested to hear from you folks. Whether you watch the show in Japanese, whether you watch the show in English, etc., etc., which do you like more and the reasons why? But those are my own personal thoughts. Can't stand the Japanese. Absolutely love the English performances. Now, with regards to the presentation, first off, it is not true that each box comes with an autograph signed by Todd Haberkorn. That is something that I had him do when I met him. But in terms of how the show was released, it's a pretty good job from Manga Entertainment. The picture quality and audio is quite nice, given that it's a DVD. You get all 6 episodes across 2 discs. You have an audio commentary from the English cast. And to be honest, usually I'm not a fan of these English cast commentaries, but I did actually find the audio commentary for this quite enjoyable. It's only for 1 episode, which I think is a bit of a shame. It's the 2nd episode, but I still think it's actually surprisingly worth listening to. And beyond that, you have a couple of other extras, an interview, an image gallery, etc., etc. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the way that Manga Entertainment released this. And I truly hope that either Manga Entertainment, now known as Funimation UK, decide to re-release this series, or another UK distributor decides to re-release this series. I think this is a series that is well worth picking up, and I think it's a shame that, for all intents and purposes, it is out of print over here. So in conclusion, what are my thoughts on Rin, Daughters of Mnemosyne? It is a show that I absolutely love. I think it is such a fantastic show, and even though I think it fumbles a bit in its last episode, and also I think a couple of scenes are a bit too gratuitous when it comes to sexuality, I still think it is an absolutely fabulous show. And I think that anyone who can handle high levels of violence, high levels of sexuality, etc., etc., should check out this show, because I think you'll find the types of stories that it decides to tell really intriguing. I think you will love the characters as much as I do. I just think it's an absolutely fantastic show, and you should definitely go check it out. So that was my review of Rin, Daughters of Mnemosyne. Let me know your thoughts on Rin, Daughters of Mnemosyne. Did you like the show? Did you dislike the show? If you did like it, why did you like it? If you didn't like it, why did you not like it? Which do you prefer to watch it in, English or Japanese? And if you do, why? And of course, if you have any additional information about Rin, Daughters of Mnemosyne, about ATX, about Xebec, etc., etc., please leave them in the comments below. And of course, if you want to support the channel, I would encourage you to use my Amazon and Right Stuff affiliate links in the description below, When you purchase an anime and manga through those affiliate links, not only are you supporting me, not only are you supporting the channel, but you're also supporting the anime and manga industry. So I'd highly encourage you to purchase your anime and manga through those affiliate links. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye-bye.